Congratulations. You've made it. You're currently sitting at 35,000 feet in a Gulfstream G550, sipping a sparkling water that costs more than your first car. You aren't here because you won a contest. You're here because you're important. Or more accurately, you're here because you know someone who knows someone who owns a piece of the world you weren't supposed to see. The pilot just announced our descent into the U.S. Virgin Islands. But we aren't heading to a resort in St. Thomas. We're heading to a 70-acre limestone speck in the ocean called Little St. James. To the rest of the world, this is Pedophile Island, a scar on the face of humanity, a place of nightmares. But to you, today, it's a networking opportunity. Now, look out the window. See that blue and white striped building on the cliff? The one that looks like a cheap knockoff of an Orthodox church? That's the temple. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that building, and the man who built it, is the single most successful psychological operation in modern history. Buckle up. We're about to land on the most forbidden island on Earth. And I should warn you, once you're on the manifest, you never really leave. Stepping onto the dock of Little St. James feels less like a crime scene and more like a high-end rehab center for people who own congressmen. It's quiet. Too quiet. No birds. Just the hum of the industrial-grade generators hidden beneath the limestone. You see, the trick to being a billionaire monster isn't hiding in a dark cave. It's hiding in the blinding light of extreme wealth. If you have enough money, the forbidden becomes exclusive. Jeffrey Epstein didn't just buy an island. He bought a vacuum. He created a space where the laws of physics and morality seemed to bend. Why were they all here? The princes, the presidents, the tech moguls. Was it just for the illicit services offered? Probably not. You can get that in any major city if you're rich enough. No, they came here for the compromat. The island wasn't a playground. It was a high-tech spider web. And you, my friend, just flew right into the center of it. Let's talk about the temple. Most people think the temple was a place for rituals. But when investigators finally got inside, they found something much more corporate. The gold dome on top, it blew off in a hurricane because it was made of painted plywood. The front door, it's fake, a painted-on illusion. To get in, you go through a small side door. But here is the detail that should make your skin crawl. Epstein held a lighthouse license for Little St. James. He petitioned the government to be recognized as a navigational aid. The catch? There was no lighthouse. The license gave him a legal loophole to maintain 24/7 high-powered surveillance and control over the waters surrounding the island. It wasn't about safety. It was about ensuring that no boat could approach without being flagged by his private security before they even saw land. Underneath your feet right now is a reinforced concrete bunker system. The FBI spent weeks trying to map it. Epstein reportedly spent tens of millions on telecommunications infrastructure, on a private island, for a man who claimed to be a simple science enthusiast. Think about that. You don't need fiber optic arrays and server farms to host a dinner party. You need them to record every single room, 24/7, in 4K resolution. Every guest who stepped onto this island was being converted into data. You aren't a guest. You're a file on a hard drive that's probably sitting in a safe in Herzliya or Langley right now. You might be wondering, if this was all so obvious, how did it last for 20 years? Welcome to the science of silence. Epstein's most powerful tool wasn't money. It was his proximity to the edge. He famously funded the Edge Foundation, a group of elite scientists. This wasn't just about his ego. It was social laundering. He didn't just fund science. He funded the scientists who would later vouch for him as a visionary. When a Nobel laureate calls you a genius and a philanthropist, the media tends to look the other way. No one wants to hear about the teenage girls in your basement when you're supposedly funding the cure for death. He bought the credibility of the smartest people on Earth to mask the actions of the most depraved. Even his office was a fortress of paranoia. Epstein's desk was equipped with a hidden panic button. With one press, the entire room entered high security mode. Heavy steel shutters slammed over the windows, and the doors electronically deadbolted. He didn't just want to be rich. He wanted to be a god. He spoke openly about seeding the human race with his DNA at his Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. It's the ultimate life hack. If you're doing something terrible, just tell everyone you're doing it to save the future of humanity. Works every time. Just ask any Silicon Valley CEO who's currently trying to turn your brain into an advertising billboard. Let's look at the decor. On the island, there's a giant sundial. Harmless, right? Except it's surrounded by chairs that look like they belong in a courtroom. And it wasn't just the island. His Zorro Ranch in New Mexico served as the template for his madness. Underneath the desert sand, he built a massive underground grotto, complete with a stone fireplace. Imagine a subterranean cathedral dedicated to excess, hidden hundreds of feet below the surface of a ranch in the middle of nowhere. Everything Epstein built was designed to be uncanny. In psychology, the uncanny valley is that feeling of revulsion when something looks almost human, but not quite. The island is the physical manifestation of that feeling. It was designed to make the guests feel untethered from reality. When you lose your sense of what's normal, you're much easier to manipulate. You're more likely to participate in things you'd never dream of doing in London or New York. The island was a deprogramming chamber for the elite. How does a ghost run an island? Epstein's Lolita Express didn't just carry people. It carried influence. The logistics were handled through a web of shell companies so complex that even the IRS got a headache. Names like Hyperion Air and Southern Trust. But here's the kicker. Epstein had no visible source of wealth. He wasn't a tech founder. He didn't inherit oil money. He was a high school dropout who taught math at a private school until he was discovered by Bear Stearns. He was a financial advisor to one man, Leslie Wexner, the guy who owned Victoria's Secret. Because nothing says discreet financial management like owning a company that sells push-up bras to teenagers. The real secret of the island isn't what happened in the bedrooms. It's who was paying the electric bill. Because if you follow the money, you don't find a billionaire. You find a conduit. A middleman between the people with the power and the people with the secrets. You think you know the story. You think it ends in a jail cell in Manhattan in August 2019. But here is the twist. In the middle of his Upper East Side mansion, guests were greeted by the infamous painting of Bill Clinton wearing a blue dress and red high heels. A joke that wasn't really a joke. It was a signal. A look what I have on the leader of the free world statement of dominance. 2 days before Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, he signed a new will. He transferred $577 million into a trust called the 1953 Trust. Nothing suspicious about a guy on suicide watch suddenly becoming very interested in estate planning. And then there's the medical examiner, Dr. Michael Baden, one of the world's most famous pathologists, noted that the fractures in Epstein's hyoid bone are much more consistent with homicidal strangulation than suicidal hanging. But the most haunting detail comes from across the ocean. According to a 2025 Serbian tabloid report, unconfirmed but notably never denied by any major intelligence agency, a man looking remarkably like a post-surgery Epstein was spotted in a remote village near the Bosnian border. Maybe he just liked the climate. Or maybe, when you have $500 million in a blind trust and friends in every secret service on the planet, a death is just a very expensive rebranding campaign. So, you're leaving now. You've seen the temple, you've seen the tunnels, you've seen the statues. But as you look back at that limestone rock disappearing into the waves, ask yourself one question. If you were a man who spent 30 years building a global network of blackmail, who had the resources of multiple intelligence agencies, and who knew where every single body was buried, would you really just sit in a cell and wait for the end? In 2022, a massive transfer of funds from a dormant Epstein-linked account was flagged and then immediately suppressed. The digital trail went cold faster than the coffee in that New York cell. The world likes to believe that the monster is dead. It makes us sleep better. It lets the people on that guest list breathe a little easier. But wealth of that magnitude doesn't just disappear. It just changes its POV. You're back on the plane now. The black envelope is still on the table. You open it. There's no letter inside. Just a single photograph of you, taken from the temple window 5 minutes ago. The island is forbidden, but the guests never truly leave. What do you think? Is the ghost of Little St. James really gone? Or is he just watching us from a different shore? Let me know in the comments if I'm still here to read them.